What's up? It's Minecraft by Sabrina bringing you a beginner tutorial in Inkscape on a birth announcement shadow box. The first thing I'm going to do is measure my blank, which is an 8x8 frame from the dollar store. I am measuring from the outside of the frame so that my numbers stay nice and square, and then at the end I'll scale it down to the inside of the frame. I'll start by creating the frame of the base. Using the Insert Square tool, I'll create an 8x8 square. Then I'm going to use Control D on my keyboard to duplicate that. It sits right on top, so you need to move it in order to see it. Another option is to right-click and select Duplicate. You can also select the Edit menu and select Duplicate. And then lastly, depending on the version of Inkscape you're in, you can hit the duplicate icon that's right on the screen. Next, I'm going to select the More menu and select the Align and Distribute menu. This will open up on the right-hand panel. I'm going to select all of my squares and then center align both vertically and horizontally. So now I'll work on the base cutout. Similar to the squares, I'm going to insert circles using the Insert tool and size it to 3.25. I need 2 of them, so I'll go ahead and duplicate that. And then I'll duplicate a few more times and adjust the size to 4.5, 5.75, and 7.25. I am going to select them all, and from the bottom color panel, select the color. This is just going to help me see it better so that I can work with it. Next, from the Align menu, I'll center align vertically and center align horizontally. Now we're going to cut out the frames. I'm going to select all of my objects, and at the bottom ribbon you'll see they're all selected because it says 10 objects are selected in this layer. Next, from the Align menu, I'll center both vertically and horizontally. Now I need to create a few slices by selecting 1 square and 1 circle and going to the Path, Difference. This creates a difference of the selected paths. So what it does is it takes the object that's at the bottom, it keeps that shape, and it subtracts or hollows out whatever the object is at the top. So if I move it over, you'll see it cut out that circle, leaving just the square. I'm going to change the color just so that we can see it better later on. You can do this with the Control- shortcut on your keyboard. So selecting your next one, difference it out, and change the color so we can see it. You're going to repeat this process on all of your squares except on the last frame. So on this one, I'm going to leave just my circle and my square because the back one is just a plain base, and then the circle I'm going to use to create a print and cut image later. Let's take a closer look at the object. When you select it, the bottom is going to display a lot of information. It's going to tell you the type of object it is, it's going to tell you what layer it sits in, if it's in a group or not, and if it is a path, most importantly, it's going to tell you how many nodes it takes to create that path. So if you click it one more time, you'll get your rotation or your scaling options. Double-clicking it enters into the Edit Node menu, and you'll see all the nodes pop up on your image. You can edit each node independently. You can edit them simultaneously by dragging over all of them. So here you can see that the bottom of the screen says I have 10 out of 10 nodes selected. So in order to make this shape, it's going to take 10 nodes. Now think of this as a connect the dots image. Your Cricut is going to follow node 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And as long as they close up, it's going to create a 2D shape to cut out. Now I'll make that circular wreath. So I'll insert a circle with the circle tool and then work with just a stroke. So that's the outline of the image. So I'm going to go to Object and Fill in Stroke. Additionally, you can double click in the Fill in Stroke section at the bottom of the screen. This is going to then open the Fill in Stroke menu on the right-hand panel. Here on the fill, I need to make sure that's turned off. So I'm going to press the X. Now, if you haven't turned your stroke on yet, your image might disappear. And if so, don't worry, just go to the stroke menu and make sure that your stroke is on. So for that, you need to select the first box next to the X. Now we'll go to the stroke and style menu. This menu is going to allow you to change the width of your outline. So you can go up or down in order to make it thicker or wider. When I select the object, it tells me it's a circle in layer 1. So it's not a path, which is what Design Space needs. If I double click it, I get these handles that allow me to change the circle's perspective, but not necessarily the outline that creates the circle itself. To do that, I need to go to Path and Object to Path. This is going to convert my shape to an actual path. When done so, it gives you 4 nodes that create the shape. Now the nodes are represented by these little squares that you can manipulate each one on their own, but you can only see them when you're in the Edit Nodes option by double clicking on your object. In order to make them permanently visible on your stroke, we need to turn on the Markers menu. So you'll highlight all of your nodes, and in the Stroke Style menu, select the Markers dropdown. You can select whichever icon you want to represent your node. I'm going to select it from the first dropdown and from the middle dropdown, which is my beginning point and all the points in between. I don't see it at first, and that's because my width is very thin. So if I raise the width, you'll start to see my outline thicken, as well as those node markers start to appear. To add more nodes, at the top corner of the screen, I'm going to hit the Add Nodes button, and it's going to add additional nodes, and it's going to automatically add them symmetrically and distributed throughout your shape. Now that we know a little bit about markers, let's create a custom marker. To do so, I'm going to Control D to duplicate my image, and then I'm going to select a color. Because it's the stroke, I need to hold down the Shift button when I select my color. I'll click it one more time so that the rotation nodes appear, and I'll rotate it so I can see both nodes. Then I'm going to paste an image that's already set to path, and it's made up of 45 nodes, and I'll go ahead and shrink it. Now I need to convert it to a marker. To do so, I'll go Object, Object to Marker. Now just make a mental note, the object is going to disappear when it converts to a marker. So if you want to keep a copy of it, then duplicate it before you do this process. Once you created the marker, you can change it by selecting it from the drop-down menu in the Stroke and Fill style. Depending on the size it was when you created it, you might have to make it either bigger or smaller by playing with the width. This also changes the width of the actual circle path, so if you need a thicker one, you might have to do that separately. Again, I'm going to select the middle and the beginner pointer, and you'll see it'll fill in all the way. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn on the X-ray mode so that you can see the outlines. If you look and you select all of them, you'll notice it's still just a node. We are just representing the node with this icon. So we need to convert it to a path so that we can then see it. So we're going to go Path, Stroke to Path, and then you need to ungroup them. And after you ungroup them, you'll see each one individually now has nodes across the actual image. After they're all ungrouped, you'll probably ungroup multiple times because it creates several layers, and then you're just going to go ahead and Path and Union to weld all those layers together and make it one solid layer. Now you'll see there's nodes across all of the objects within the image. With my wreath welded together, I'll select the top frame and center them. I'm going to size it so it fits just right, just making sure that my tips completely touch the frame or else they'll still be separated. Select them both and then weld them together. Now I'll take a closer look at what the path looks like. Remember, this is going to be what your actual cutting machine follows. So you'll see the bottles, the circle, and the little outline that holds them together are all welded to this main frame here. So it's going to follow these lines. So you'll notice you'll end up with an actual 2D object cutout. Now we're going to go ahead and start adding the text. Now we're going to curve this text. Inkscape does have a few different options to achieve this. I'm going to use the Put on Path feature. So that means I need an object that has a path in order for me to follow that path. In this case, because I want a curve, I'll use a few circles. Create a 6.25, a 5-inch, and a 3.75-inch circle. Next, I'll create my text by using the Insert Text tool, drag and drop to create a box, and then type out my text. I'm going to line it up to my frame, and I want it to be about 2 frames worth wide, so I'll just stretch it out. duplicate that, type out your next line, line it up to where you want it, and just kind of size it to how you want it to look. I want the smaller text to be about half the width of the next frame. To change my font, I'm going to double click it, select my font from the drop down menu. Now we're going to put this on a path. So select one text and the circle it's going to sit on, go to text and put on path. This is then going to make your text follow that outside of the circle. Because it is just text, we need to convert it to a path by doing path object to path, object ungroup, and path union. That is very important, or else it will not keep its curvature shape. For the last one, when you put it on the path, because it puts it on the outside of the circle, I need it on the inside. So I'm going to use that flip button so that it goes onto the inside. Again, you can adjust the kerneling all as needed, and then don't forget to convert it to a path. With all of your text curved and converted to a path, you can now line it up to the frame and make any adjustments as needed. Stretch it out, rotate it. Just make sure that before you weld it, the top of all of your text is actually touching the frame it's going to be attached to. Once it's adjusted, go ahead and select each frame and each text and do path union to weld it together. Now, for those of you who like using Design Space, this can easily be recreated for the most part by the same exact process. Use your shapes, insert a few squares, insert a few circles, size them appropriately, and then select one square, one circle, slice, and delete all the excess. Repeat that, one square, one circle, slice, delete all the excess. Then you can just change your colors to whatever colors you're going to use. I'm going to arrange them on my canvas just so that I can see them easily to work with. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in my text, change my font, adjust the size as needed, and then kind of arrange them to where they're going to sit on. Using the curve option, before you change your text, it must be in text format. You can just change the diameter so that it fits the curvature of your frame. Again, make sure that your curve sits just right where all the letters are touching the edge of the frame. Once you have it set where you want it and you've adjusted and arranged them where you want it, go ahead and select one text and the frame it's going to sit on and weld it together. The last thing you're going to do is probably a print and cut image. So let's say you're going to put a baby picture in there. You'll upload that, select it as a print and cut. And then I'm just going to size it so that it fits inside that inner circle. Select both of them and slice so that it flattens out. Sending everything to the mat. Here you have both your final products. Now, yes, you can achieve a similar look within Design Space. You are limited to that wreath that we created with the bottles and the circles. Yes, you can do it painstakingly in Design Space, but you don't have that automated accuracy that you have within Inkscape. So on the final project, I did size it down to 85 millimeters, which was the inside of the actual frame. I cut it using the blue mat and 61-pound cardstock set to cardstock medium with difficulty settings. I then taped double-sided tape foam from the back of them to create kind of a 3D effect with them and just taped them into place. I do want to suggest, because the text and your wreath ends up being kind of intricate, if you have a brayer, use that to roll your paper and make sure it adheres to the mat very well, and that'll just make sure that your edges are nice and crisp. Well, crafters, that is all I have for you today. If you like this video and if it was helpful, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and follow.